Three, two, one, and we're live, Paul. Today's the fifth episode of the Wrestlevlogs podcast. We're here joined as always with the dildo dude himself, El Chazo.
Hey!
We have the first ever Wrestlevlogs champion. He is the host of Wrestlevlogs, the mark that gets marked, Julio.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing? The Rona's season.
And yours truly, Moich. Today we have from GSL. He is the sexy god, sex god. He is sexy Steve Demarco. How's it going, Steve?
What's up, guys? Oh, man, quarantine is a bitch, but I think we're all rather safer than sorry.
Keep on keeping on.
Right.
Right.
Take it away, Julio.
So, all right. So, Steve, how you doing? How's things going around in your area?
I'm in Cedar Park, so right now we're probably like a day or two behind whatever Austin does, and we're like everyone else, stay at home unless you absolutely positively have to leave the house, kind of deal. I mean, I have asthma, my wife's pregnant, so we already have some things working, not in our favor, but I'm not too stir crazy, man. I'm blessed. Again, my wife's pregnant. She's 15 weeks. And, I got diagnosed with, thank you, man. And I got diagnosed with asthma right before this virus stuff hit. So the fact that I got diagnosed after dealing with it for a decade undiagnosed, and, I can't complain, man. I was dealing with a shoulder injury prior to all this stuff kind of going on. And, I'm like a lot of wrestlers, the show must go on. You just kind of work through whatever injuries you have. So this has given me a chance for nothing else than to just sit and relax and not worry too much about, unfortunately performing or being show ready per se. And, who knows when when we're going to go back to normal. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, everyone can leave their houses now. It's going to be another thing about how people really react to it. So I count my blessings. I've got all the streaming services that I could possibly have. I've watched through, we just got like the DC Universe app for a couple weeks just to stuff. So it's not like I'm running out of stuff to watch. There's wrestling to watch, and me and the rest of GSL is trying to figure out, like quarantine videos and a few other things to kind of continue the momentum that we were building, but at the same time, be kind of cognizant of the fact that none of us are really sure when we're going to go back to normal with this stuff.
But what a great blessing to be diagnosed with, for your asthma right before this hits, though. You can take more of a precaution. Right.
And I was kind of one of those guys that, if it was just me, I'd obviously be working and I'd, stick to the stuff that I was, and I wouldn't be necessarily as concerned because it's just me, I'm the only one who has to deal with my stuff. But, you throw the pregnant wife in the mix and it's kind of, well, now I really have to be concerned about what I bring in, just interacting with people on the day to day. And it's funny that it's only been, 3 weeks, I think, since people started canceling, but I kind of think of, wow, we were getting prepared for shows at, that weekend before everything started canceling, and having that debate about, well, does the show come first or does your health come first? Or, in some ways hoping the promotion would cancel because you don't want to be a person to cancel, from a professional standpoint, you don't want to be that person, even though you try to have to weigh the odds. But I was really at kind of well, do I perform and put myself at risk? And again, outside of myself, what am I bringing to my wife and potentially my unborn child? And then it becomes, that's a stark reality. And so I'm glad it's kind of out of performers' hands. As much we might all want to be, forever is getting canceled, and Mania is going to be in kind of in a unique state of like an empty building and what they're going to do with that. And you see everybody online, but I kind of go at the end of the day, man, hey, I'm healthy. My wife's healthy. My stepson's healthy. Most of my friends are healthy. My family seems to be healthy, but this thing's it's a legitimate, something that you write movies about, like Contagion, which it's really kind of people compare it to. So it's just been interesting, man. And again, like with GSL, I know we're planning to do some kind of quarantine video coming up, probably on Saturday, potentially maybe doing some stuff live as Mania is happening. Maybe, we cover a match or two. So it's in some respects kind of forced us to figure out just different ways of getting our word out, getting the name out. At the same time, hey, how do you get people to want them to support you because you're going through like, well, we lost shows, we lost this, we lost that. At the same time, people that aren't able to work at all, and really are going to be impacted regardless of stimulus checks or not. So it's become the reality of it. But I think it's a blessing in many ways because, for me, hey man, I'm blessed. I get to be with my wife as much as possible. And at this point in our lives, that's the one thing that can get lost in your day to day. I mean, we're all just kind of rushing, right? We're all running through the next event. We're all concerned about what's coming next, as opposed to sitting down and really kind of having a chance to reflect. It gives everyone this chance to reflect. It gives everyone a chance to kind of appreciate what we had, when we were doing shows, or when we were in kind of the thick of it. And when you do lose sight of the moment because you're worried about what's coming next, as far as even like what comes next segment, especially for GSL, where we're such this big group, and especially at certain promotions where we're in multiple segments, and it becomes you can just get lost in it. So if anything, man, it's a blessing to like take it, if nothing else, take a step back, watch some wrestling, take a step back, watch some movies that you haven't watched, or think of all the stuff that's going to be coming out theatrically that you can now probably just sit at home and watch. So man, it's more a blessing for me than anything,
Yeah. It's always family first for anything, man. It's always family first. And like you said, on your GSL content, you have to like change things up, as we did. Also, we're starting to do this amazing project with different wrestlers and people around the business.
Right.
And you kind of have to just look at the bright side of things, like you said, take some time to heal, which while you're working you don't really get a chance to do so. And I guess be with your wife and everything, and maybe just sit back and relax for a little bit.
Well, the thing is, like, me and what I call the core four of GSL, which is me, the Great Ones, and Loverboy Nate, we were all in early Texas for a show where we were put in the hero position, which is rare. Usually we're the antagonist, and we're totally fine with that because that's just, I think that's where we need to be from a group standpoint. We need to be the antagonist. We need to be the group that people like, because we say join the party, so on and so forth. But the truth is, man, we're just there to get a reaction and potentially get everyone over that ever's involved with us, from fans to staff to talent to anyone, that's our end. But we're in early, and so they flipped the script on us, which we're totally fine with. And I hurt my shoulder literally like taking, in essence, a chair shot. Just the way I got hit, the way my arm moved, it was, besides the contact of that was literally what it was. Felt a pop. We the guy who did that to me hit me with something else. So after that, my arm didn't feel quite right. And luckily we were able to, on the fly, flip what we needed to do. But it was a shame because realistically, all I did that night was come out for opening promo, and then I wasn't able to wrestle in my match. And I had some bruising and so on and so forth. And doctors were like, well, surgery might need to happen. So in my mind, I'm going, man, think of all the shows I'm going to miss. And then, of course, I get stubborn and like, well, let's see if I can work through it, which is what I was doing. Because my mentality was GSL functions really well when we're all able to be there. And even though it's an 8-person unit, that's the problem, is it's an 8-person unit at times. It's such a big group, and we have satellite members and people that want to join, so on and so forth. But with that said, the injury, this whole pandemic, unfortunately, couldn't have come at a better time for me and for some, because again, we all go through that. I don't know, man, I know plenty of talent that are dealing with all kinds of things. And so again, because what's coming next, and you lose sight of the fact, like, hey man, I was blessed to be put in the position I was put in, that I had people that were there that kind of could support me and back me up, so I didn't have to put myself in more harm. That it wasn't worse than it could have been as far as the shoulder goes. But again, it's something I'm going to have to work with until I get potential surgery or I rehab it to a point where I can get through it. On the flip side, you go, man, time, right? Like as a group, hitting while the iron's hot and trying to build momentum and then taken away from you. But the truth is, it's taken away from a lot of us. And truthfully, even with like our, GSL 2020 stuff, we are working from a quarantine standpoint because we can't all be together all the time. We don't always get that energy because we're all in different cities. Scotty's in San Antonio. I'm in near the Austin area. Most of the people are, in Houston, but in different spots. And so it's hard to collectively get us all together unless we're on a show together. And show days are not easy. Not easy for me, not easy for the group because we're in multiple segments. So it's not like, oh, we have the one match and we can film and record and get content throughout. It's kind of preparing yourself mentally for multiple segments, being a show within a show. And then, so we've had some practice with it. It's just we were falling out of practice with it as well. So if anything else, it's given us time to, okay, man, how do we want to proceed? Where do we want to go with this? All the while going, who knows when we're going to perform again and what that's really going to look like moving forward. Because we're in kind of a new, it's a new world at this point. It's not going to be the same once they give us the okay, we're not going to be the same. And for me, I hope we're not the same. I hope that people realistically look at basic hygienic practices and implement them throughout, that it doesn't take some pandemic to make you wash your hands. It's like
that's put on deodorant.
Don't touch your face, but it is what it is.
Don't touch the wrestler will be enforced more.
I mean, again, it's one of those things of like, we all took for granted what we had, and like certain of us wrestlers, and certain like social practices, handshakes, so on and so forth, stuff that might be passe, again, just watching out for each other. And at the end of the day going, nothing's the end of the world as long as you're still alive. And just because we lost a couple of shows, it sucks. I get it. Texas Forever, I get the collective and what was going to be for a lot of people. But it's not like that kind of co-promotion, that kind of cross-promotion has to stop, or that it takes WrestleMania for forces to come together. And I think as long as people want to build this kind of community within Texas or community within wrestling, it's a lost opportunity. Yes, some people it's gonna suck for a lot of people, and that's stuff we have to be cognizant of. Just think of how much more appreciative all of us are going to be the first show back, right? The first time that we're able to all kind of assemble in a large group. I for one can't wait for that, but at the same time, I'm like, if people would just listen to what the higher ups are telling us to do, stay home. It sucks. Yeah, I get it. But I'm not bored with my family. I'm not bored watching television. I'd probably be doing that irregardless, and even wrestling shows. Again, this has given me a chance because realistically, I could have been taken and out due to the shoulder injury and not been able to come back. And I've been in a position where wrestling's been taken away from me for a number of months because of injury or wear and tear, or given the don't do this anymore kind of conversation. And so I'm always blessed just to be in it still. So I'm not going to whine too much about opportunities that were missed, as much as it sucks, right now, especially this weekend. I know a lot of people are upset, but fuck, if you've got your health, what more do you fucking need, right? You now have time to sit back and figure out what, how do we tell our stories moving forward? And realistically, as much as I coach and produce and mentor talent and go use the thing that's attached to your hand 95% of the day, use that product, use those apps and get your word across, and you don't need a wrestling ring to get your character over. And you know, so now it's like a complete exercise in that theory. You know, how over can you get when you're not performing? You know, when you're not performing in the classical sense of being at a show, in a venue, you know, surrounded by and having to be physical, you know, and that be the way you get over. When you realize I always say that's not the way that's one way to get over. But I look at GSL when I try to tell my guys, man, our motto should be, we should walk in and just be able to wave, and we should get a reaction that way before we do anything, because the one important thing is we showed up. I said, once we get it there, everything else is easy. And, you know, so that's always been my exercise with the group, is like, how can we get more out of less, while still being able to showcase the talent, and really, it's fun to play with the hierarchy of things and the reactions. You know, I mean, we've had some highlighted moments, and it's fun. Like, nothing's better than our ACW music playing at ACW, like in a sound check, like they just happen to play it a few seconds and hear the audio groans from the audience, because they know they're in for a long night, because we're going to be there multiple times. That song's going to play throughout. So yeah, man, I'm just glad, you know, I'm blessed, and I'm grateful for anyone that's, you know, still alive at this point, and don't take it for granted. You know, I mean, this, in essence, a common cold can basically wipe you out, but I mean, none of us are getting out of this alive. You know, that's spoiler alert. You know. And the credits roll on all of us, and there's no post-credit. You know, hopefully there's a post-credit scene, but, you know, we're not aware of that at this point. So,
all good. So, kind of on the topic of GSL, and since, you know, you kind of alluded to for the future, for lack of a better, for that post-credit scene, do you have any plans for GSL going forward? Like, do you have future members? Do you like any plans to expand beyond Texas? Any new direction you want to take the group, you know, right, for that, like you said, that post-credit scene?
Right. I mean, honestly, man, and we could probably I'd really like to get into the history of it, because I think a lot of people would be interested, especially on a new platform. I've said it a couple of times. But as far as like future, you know, like the idea of GSL 2020 was, you look at being the elite and you go, that's the model, so to speak. You look at Sammy Guevara, and you look at other people that utilize YouTube and the social platforms the way that they utilize it. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if the next step is to get the 8 members consistently on every show that we're currently on? So like Texas All-Star, there's like 5 or 6 of us, you know, 6 of us at this point, but there's not the full 8. Well, how do you get the full 8? You know, ACW is one of the few places where we do have the full 8. Heavy metal, it's hit or miss, and a lot of times it's scheduling, so on and so forth, because of our group. Ideally, what my plan was build the brand so that what we started doing was kind of co-promoting with promotions. So if they did like Cheap Pops did a show, we wanted to be in association with GSL. Same thing with ACW. Like, the takeover idea is really for us to become this kind of bring our brand to help your brand. What can we do for you? And we started to have these ideas of coming into year 2 for the original group. What's next? And honestly, it's like defending our turf at All-Star, and then at ACW grabbing all the gold, you know, because ideally you have to grab those trinkets of success and victory and whatnot, so that your voice can be heard, you know. But ultimately it's like getting multiple segments and then become a show within a show, and then kind of co-promote. And, you know, I think I put this out last year that, hey, April 2020, wouldn't it be great? I'll be 20 years performing at that point. Wouldn't it be great to just produce our own shows and just have GSL travel all over the place as a brand, and that draw, and that be everywhere? You know, ideally it'd be great to travel as much, and then 2021 be like, well, this is where you can mainly see us. we're putting out content everywhere, but you have to come to us if you want to see us. And maybe we have a few shows that we're like, oh, these are kind of our homegrown, and we really work with them. But ultimately, hey, within 5 years, GSL is its own thing, where it's people come to join the party, and ultimately in parties, things happen. And then we transition from just being a wrestling troupe to just being an entertainment troupe, where it's just this act that can go anywhere. And we don't necessarily, we're not confined within the ideas of just being a wrestling stable, that we're just an entertainment, because that's where you get more eyes on us. And ultimately getting paid to not have to bump is ideal, because your bump card fills up before you know it. And ideally it was like, oh man, eventually get a tour bus, and film, kind of do it, film all that stuff and then release kind of vlog like, because I'd been doing vlogs. I mean, I've been on YouTube for over a decade, and I was doing vlogs back then. But to use a team dynamic and really build the group and get it to be stable, and really realistically, the 8 of us, we've only had a handful of shows as the whole group. And so it's been real interesting, as far as like adding members. We always say 8 is enough, because you ideally, as much as people may compare us to NWO, and I'm fine with that comparison, the truth is also, man, could you imagine 15, 12? Because again, I go, well, great Scott's got, he's got the commission at Heavy Metal, he's got BE at New Texas. So are they satellite members? I've also been at Heavy Metal, so that kind of all works. Hey, well, Rob Love and I, could we potentially, and then people that have wanted to join, ideally I go, I'd love a sea of GSL shirts and everyone's joined the party, and still find some person or a group that would try to fight us, because obviously you'd have to have people to fight, and that's where it becomes hey, we want to offer positions to everyone, in the hopes that one of two things happens. People are forced to join us because the crowd wants it and you have to do what they want, or you become whoever thwarts us becomes the heel in the scheme, because everyone wants to join the party. And the truth is, if we have a sea of shirts, then our merch sales are going through the roof, which ideally is what would fund the operation. I think we've joked all the time about doing a GoFundMe just to keep the party going, and it being a group GoFundMe. Like, realistically, that's what everyone does, right? They do it to facilitate continuing, right? And for better or worse. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to ask for sponsors. I don't, there's certain things like, God, I wish I talked to Brian Cervantes and like talk to him about social media practices, so that we could build our brand to be more self-fulfilling, so that when we lose on appearances, we're not losing out on the grand scheme. But man, I can be honest, I have had plenty of GSL merch online, and that doesn't necessarily sell as well as when we're at the venue, because I think part of the allure too that I'm finding is that the fan interaction at in essence, these meet and greets are essential to driving the product. But at the same time, if you're going to be like a tried and true heel, it's difficult, right? So it's difficult to navigate and to make people understand, like, it's just a navigation that we're all trying to figure out. I think we're all as a group trying to figure out. But I've had a blast with the group, and I just wanted to expand as far as who wants to join us, and I think that in certain respects where we do have a full group, that's the idea, is like, who's going to join us next, and it could be anybody. Because I will offer a position to everyone, and it's just a matter of, go ahead.
So you're saying that all of us in Wrestlevlogs could be members of GSL?
I mean, yeah, man. I mean, you buy a shirt. That's in essence the first step, right? And then what happens after that is, yeah. I mean, at this point, ACH is kind of a satellite member, speaking, because he helped out Remedy, during the death match. The no ring deathmatch stuff.
I was in that match too. I held up the board. I was the one Remedy called dumb.
Right. So again, I told these people at ACW when we first really formed the group, I said, give us 6 months and you'll be chanting our name and everyone will want to join the party. And so you have to be kind of have to be a prophet, so to speak, and get it to that point where it's like, you want people to like what we're doing. I just want people to react to what we're doing. I never go into it one way or the other. I feel we're justified one way or the other, irregardless. But, the truth is the group was never formed by a promotion. The group was, I don't want to say my brainchild, because then it becomes this idea of like, well, who's the leader? And we can always get into that. But the truth is, like, it wasn't based on a promotion. It was based on where I was at that time in my life when I formed the group. Who I formed it with was my decision. And everyone that we've brought in has basically been more or less, a group discussion. But I've been the one to say, well, I want to bring so-and-so. I want to bring Pumpkin in. Irregardless, I just want to bring her into the group. I have my reasons for it, which I could get into why each member's in it.
Right.
Same thing with Scotty, so on and so forth.
So was actually one of my questions. So I do really want to hear, because if I may put you over for a little bit, I think GSL is awesome. I really do feel the party, and I really do like get a reaction. Like every time I see it on the card, I'm like, fuck yeah, GSL's on the card. Right. Hell, even when I invaded the quote unquote the interview that Julio and Adrian did for GSL, when it was the Great Ones, Pumpkin, Great Scott, and Remedy, and me and my buddy Matt came in holding our box of weapons, to which everyone pulled out the dildo full covered in thumbtacks and thought it was hilarious. Right. I was like, for me, I was like, holy shit, the Great Ones just played with my thumbtack dildo, and I got to touch their beards. I was like starstruck. I was like, holy shit. I was like, that was fucking awesome. But I digress. Going back, kind of like you alluded to in the history, I do really am interested in the history. Like, so what were, before GSL, like, where were you at in your career? Like, where did you think about taking, like, who was Steve Demarco before GSL, and, how did it come to be? And then kind of going into, like, how each member came to be, why they joined, and all that stuff.
Right. Okay, so let's go back, because roughly January 25th or 26th, 2018. So prior to that, man, I've been, doing this like 18 years. I'd produced for Reality Wrestling. I'd produced other places, created content, been a coach, all that. All the while being a performer, gaining kind of a reputation as a singles act, very rarely being involved in stables or groups or anything like that. At the time, wrestling for Texas All-Star, and around the beginning of the year, especially after probably year 10, hey, what, how much longer am I going to do this? Can I go year to year? It always becomes that, like, reassess. So that January, probably that December, I forget, I think I was wrestling Alex Reigns, I want to say, and post-match, here comes Zen Zen, who's a legend within Texas All-Star and also a legend within Texas, one of the longest reigning, if not the longest reigning champion for their company, and they've been around for like 27, 28 years at this point. But anyway, he came in and attacked me and laid me out, and probably as I'm laying there, I'm kind of like, okay, how much longer am I going to do this? Am I enjoying it? Am I having fun? I'm slated as a baby face, but how much mileage is in that? Wasn't really investing in gear, this, that, the other. Was kind of in my lull of life, and figuring out what's the future, right? Because I'm an aging guy. I've been doing it a while. I see all the youth. I see kind of how things are. What can I do? And I've been Sexy Steve for a long time and built the reputation, like I said. But again, am I having fun? Is it where I want to be? So on and so forth. On that same show, where the Great Ones with Loverboy Nate Andrews is a trio. And I really love the act. I love the act from the moment they step out the curtain. The Great Ones in kind of blazers and masks, and they're holding, color coordinated, and they're holding a big mirror, and here comes Nate with his with his light up boa, and phenomenal in the ring, but I don't think it gets nearly the credit that he should. So I looked at these three and I was just entertained, and behind the scenes there were the three of the guys that I talk to everyone. I'm pretty social, but at the same time I can keep to myself at times. And so, but I really liked the guys genuinely. I liked who they were as people. And I thought, man, if I were to ever do a stable, this would be a place, because I have not carte blanche, but it's one of the places that I mainly worked for. And I knew that I rarely asked for favors. I rarely asked for any kind of preferential treatment or anything like that. I always just, if I'm not running the show, there's no sense in getting my input unless you want my input. But this one time, basically at the end of the show, I went up to, and I had talked to the three before. I said, man, what if we join forces? What if we just join forces outside of All-Star? We just kind of join forces from a web series standpoint, again, thinking of like being the elite, so on and so forth. And they agreed. And that, the great ones were pretty brand new in the business. And Nate had been doing it 15, about 12, 13 years at that point. So I went to Bob Murphy's, the promoter, and I said, look, I don't ask for much, but this is going to happen. This group's going to happen. Originally, we were going to be called Great Sex. It's the name of the thing on our group messenger. That's who we are as a group. We call it Great Sex. I had ideas for the shirts. It was going to be like Star Wars font. And I figured, man, could you imagine a sea of people wearing the Great Sex shirt? Well, the one caveat to it was we had to change the name. Great Sex wouldn't work for a family company, because can you imagine a bunch of kids wearing a Great Sex shirt? Probably not. So, again, and I didn't think of it that way. I just thought, man, I just want to have a group. I was thinking of online sales, so on and so forth. And he said, what if you called it like Great Sexy Love or something? And I was like, oh, that works. I'm in the middle, so I'm not at the forefront in the, I'm not the main eventer. I'm this, that, the other. I'm in this group. I'm in the middle of this group. So the name makes sense in that way. The Great, who kind of prime everybody, and I'm kind of the thing that holds everything together. And then Love, because I looked at the Lover Boy Nate Andrews character and him as a performer and said, man, I've got to get this group to the main event level, because as a main event, awesome. And that was the one caveat. Let's change the name. Guys didn't, the group didn't assume that it was going to happen, but I rarely asked for favors. Bob gave us the blessing, and so we were kind of hitting the ground running. So on YouTube, there is an actual video of me as a babyface, commenting on what happened with me and Zen Zen. And I rarely think of what I'm going to say before I say it. I basically was like, the legend of Steve Demarco is going to continue, and when I'm done, no one's going to expect what they're going to see. And because one, I'd never really been with a stable, and two, I was going to switch whether you liked it or not. So in January, and the group can say, we weren't really sure. I figured we had some legs, but what they didn't know was that my plan was only to wrestle from January through April of that year. So 2018, we have this big rumble in April. I figured that would be a proper send-off. Not that I'm going to tell anyone, but that's going to be my send-off. I didn't give anyone else any kind of advance notice. I just figured April, I'm going to be done. This is back in December when I'm telling them I'm going to pitch the group. I figured, 3-4 months of me with them. We'll do some funny stuff. We'll have stuff. I'll have stuff to remember it. And then I'll kind of ride off in the sunset. Maybe I become a manager and I, work with them here and there, or I just take my talents and just go behind the scenes completely, because I've done that before. And that first show that we were as a foursome, it clicked, and it clicked from the very first promo. So I tell this promo on YouTube, invite everyone, so on and so forth. Pretty fiery. Everyone, some of the ones that were in the know figured I'd already turned, but it just sounded like I was very upset with the situation. But again, in my mind, I'm like, this will go through April. So that first show in January where we formed, honestly, we did a double switch. Zen Zen came in as a heel. I came in as a babyface. And within the promo, we flipped before anything happened. It was just the way I came about it, the group, the reaction of the group forming, people seeing it from that point. And I was like, could hear the energy of the crowd. Because here's I hate to backtrack, but this is what happens, right? I think probably October of that year, of that previous year, 2017, I worked Cherry Ramones, Juicy, and the crowd just wasn't giving us our respect, kind of, so to speak. And it was through no fault of either of us. They just weren't buying what we were trying to do. Me as like a good guy and him as, just this good guy match. So that was kind of one of the catalysts of me wanting to turn heel anyway. So fast forward to January, in the midst of the promo, we flipped sides, which is what I wanted. And just the energy I felt with the group. And I said, I'll still give it till April. We'll see what happens. Because I didn't want to tell them that, oh man, potentially I'm going to walk away. I wanted them to perform at their fullest, and I wanted to see if I could really enjoy it. And I didn't want to say, hey, well, this is going to go on for a certain amount of time. Let's just see how it goes. And kind of, if it works, great. Little did I know that, man, I'm going to have a blast, and all these things were going to happen that to where I'm like getting mad when I get a shoulder injury and I may potentially have to take months off 2 years later, and just seeing people wearing our shirts and the content that we put out and what have you. So that's kind of the formation, the name Bob Murphy. I want to say, because of the group, it kind of made sense because I said Great Sex is like, well, what about Great Sexy Love? And it's like, oh, why not Nate? Why not include that in the name? And then GSL made sense. I didn't think it was going to be chant worthy. I thought Great Sex was chant worthy. So again, getting a bunch of people to scream Great Sex, why not? So yeah. Now, as far as the group members, like adding them. So again, I saw the trio, love the trio. Great ones specifically, but Nate as well. I figure Nate's one of the best performers out there. You just have to watch him live and you'll get it, or watch footage of him. And, I think I love his theme song, so on and so forth. And we had that foursome for a bit, but again, creating stability within that group. And we were only doing it really at one place. Getting stables to really, even though it's become the trend, it's not the norm. And it is hard to book multiple guys from a financial standpoint, especially if you're like, hey man, book 8 of us for one segment. Doesn't work a lot of times. That's one segment. So, and I get it. So, again, trying to get our footing, Great Ones being green, and figuring out our, how it all kind of flows. And once it started flowing, again, All Star was really working with us. And then other companies started to kind of take notice. Pumpkin was more or less the first one from like the official group, because I always look at Texas All Stars kind of the home, so to speak, because they really are the ones who gave us the platform first. She had trained at Books for a while. Injuries, life kind of took her away from it. She was coming back into it. I've always been a fan of hers. I coached her at Reality Wrestling, so I always had immense respect for her. Plus, she was different. She wasn't trying to be, pretty, sexy, so on and so forth. She was being trashy, which worked for the dynamic of the group. Plus, to bring in a woman, Nate does a lot of intergender stuff, but to have a woman in the group, what does that make? How does that work? And really, if you can get her into a comfort zone, so to speak, I think she's a hell of a performer. It's just getting her to that point. And I figured, well, this will help her maturation as a performer, because she has at least 4 people that are reacting to her stuff in the way that she needs us to build confidence, and plus to have us, and also having that female dynamic that's not quite, not traditional female. And I really liked what she was doing. And again, hey, bring her along. She's kind of local to where the Great Ones and where we, ultimately call home. So she was kind of one of the first ones that, okay, as from an official standpoint, hey, I'm going to bring her in. Anthony Andrews, adorable Anthony Andrews, and I go way back. We've, again, mentored him at Reality Wrestling, but also knew him from Texas All Star, found he was a great performer. He doesn't work at Texas All Star now, but him and Nate are cousins, and I've always enjoyed Adorable's work. And I figure he can be kind of one of those guys who can be really comedic, but also be a bruiser if you need him to be. And I just love his the content that he does put out and some of the reactions that he makes. And, he's a sharp guy, and he was really on board with the group from when we would do the group message. And that's how I picked and choose certain guys. Me and Remedy have known each other. I mean, I got him a start before he was any. He was a student at Books. Book really wasn't utilizing him. I was booking at a show, and I brought him in so he could get some reps and put him with quality people at times, and also put him with people where he'd have to really, get out of his shell as far as not wanting to hurt people and really, carry his weight and push others around, so on and so forth, and really kind of help build his confidence as, again, as a performer. And so I knew that with him, our into ACW would be easier because he was, kind of a foundational piece of theirs. Adorable was a guy that, again, we worked with each other and, hey, if potential to work with RCW, or just because I liked having him around. I wanted him to be part of the group. He'd been a proponent and a supporter of ours from the get-go. Put in a word for us in Colorado to get us up there, so to speak. So again, he had already done right by me. So, hey, if I can bring him in the fold, awesome. Remedy, same thing. Wanted to get back into wrestling. Really can be temperamental. So I wanted to give him a place where he'd just be happy, man. Have fun. At the same time, give him a group because he's the one guy who doesn't need a group, but gives us an end to ACW. And then Great Scott, I've known Great Scott when he was Scotty Santiago and when he was teaming up with Steve-O, and again in ACW but I knew he was doing stuff at Heavy Metal. We had worked with each other at Reality Wrestling. So with him, it was just a matter of once he found the character that he really wanted to portray, and he started to work with the Great Ones because it only makes sense. Great Scott, Great Ones, it just kind of writes itself. And I figured, Heavy Metal, I love what they're doing. That gives us an end. That's an easy way to become part of a group. And at the same time, hey, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be performing from a physicality standpoint, but managing would be something. So could we do this? And then, with that comes the kimonos and this idea of like being a party and being a family and just kind of playing with people as far as like, well, who is the leader? And it's like, I don't think you get it. No one's the leader. We I might be the lead in the sense of, I formed the group and I founded it and this, that, the other. But even from the get-go, my objective was I got to get everyone over because I don't need to be Ric Flair and I'm with the Horsemen, but it's Ric Flair and the Horsemen. I need it to be the Horsemen. I don't need it to be where I'm Hulk Hogan and I have the NWO. I need it to be the NWO. I don't need it to be, Evolution where it's Triple H, kind of in the figurehead. I need all of us to rise to be main event talent. Why not? So that, hey, if I want to wrestle first on the show, great, I can get it out of the way and we can go forward with things. And hey, why not stick the cruiserweight in the main event or the intergender guy in the main event or the tag team in the main event, and it be for stakes and it be everyone's considered equal. And so that's always been the thing when people are like, well, who's the lead? It's like, I personally believe that we all bring something and we could all be leads in our own right. We just all choose to join forces. We're kind of like the Legion of Doom from the comics, or the Justice League from the comics. There's not really a true leader. It's like whatever fits at that point. Again, it's just been a blast. You know what I mean? Especially when we're able to be the complete group. It sucks when it's like, case in point, you have 6 members of GSL doing Wrestlevlog, but not all 8 because Nate and our schedules just didn't really jive with being able to be there. And I wanted to be there because I wanted to do the face-to-face. So I know you're going to have the Great Ones at some point because they mentioned that they're going to be on the show at some point. But I think once this all kind of clears up, we need to have like a face-to-face encounter and like the entire group. So it's fun, man. I could really get into like how it is to produce and all that, from especially from the group standpoint or, my other work with it. But it's never a boring moment with the group. I'll put it that way.
Right on. So it's no secret that Heavy Metal is my promotion of choice. I love that promotion to death. So I kind of want to talk about your time in Heavy Metal, because it's safe to say that you and GSL are super over with the fans. And like I mentioned before the podcast, I was first introduced to you guys through heavy metal wrestling. So I just kind of want to like hear a little bit about your time in heavy metal and how you kind of got over with the fans, how you came to be in heavy metal, why you think you got over with the fans, that type of stuff.
Well, I think, I'd seen, ultimately you look, I think we had done Colorado. The Great Ones had done heavy metal before, and I was aware of them doing weekly stuff, the Thursday Night Thunder. And I've known Dylan for a while, and his wife, Tom, I'm completely supportive of what they've done and to see what they were putting out. And I think when we went to Colorado and saw Rocky Mountain Pro was putting out daily content, and the only other one really doing that at that time was heavy metal. So, Colorado's one thing, but Texas, and they're in San Antonio. And at the time, I think I was moving between San Antonio, between Houston and Austin. I was just moving into Austin. So I was like, well, where's a local promotion that seems to be doing decent stuff? And heavy metal seemed to do it more than anything. It seemed to have this atmosphere like ACW or like IWE, which I used to run, or a few other places where you felt like everyone was wanting to put on the best show possible for the sake of the show and not just for their individual ego. And you also looked at it. And again, the Great Ones had already kind of laid the groundwork being there. And I knew Scott from my time with Reality Wrestling. So, it came down to, man, I just want to kind of check out what they're doing. Not thinking that it would become anything, but you never know, especially at heavy metal, you just never know. And I showed up with my gear, but the idea was if I can be in a quote unquote like quasi manager position, and Scotty already had kind of a manager, well then how do I fit in? And basically I bring GSL with me. And it's one thing to have the Great Ones, but I think especially at that point, without Demarco in it, it wasn't quite GSL yet. You didn't get the stamp yet. It wasn't like, the kimonos were a thing and we did that with them. And, again, getting the opportunity to work with Scott or, Jeff, so, and Rob Love, so to speak, and Kiefer, so to speak. So it was like all these little, where we were kind of loosely associated with each other. And I thought, man, I like the idea, plus the freedom of potentially bringing in GSL as a whole really obviously was one of those things in the back of my mind. Man, it wouldn't it be great to bring the GSL act as the act, bring them in, even if we do one or two segments, no big deal, or one segment, or we get pre-show or whatever. I think in some respects, and I'm never quite sure, I always go into a place like people are aware of who I am because I've done it for so long. And plus, I think if you come in with the air like they know you, that whether they know you or not, it's gonna trick their brain into thinking, okay, that guy must be important because he acts like he knows what he's, he acts like he belongs here, he acts like he owns the place or whatever have you. But I think a lot of that's just to get the point across, like, regardless whether you know me or not, I don't wrestle in San Antonio very often, hadn't. But I saw it as an opportunity to potentially work names, people that I don't normally get a chance to work with because we just don't cross paths a lot. Mike Dell being one, Joe DeMauro, a few others, that I had my eyes on, Johnny Bedlam and a few others. And again, working for Dylan, any creative types I love working with because I'm a creative type, so it's always that. I think once we formed, then it becomes, especially at heavy metal, and even though I wasn't doing a lot of physical stuff, I think I worked Chino and again Mike Dell, and I think that's only like the only two people that I really worked. We did a couple things here or there, but a lot of times I wasn't really physically involved. I'm just there kind of backing up Scott, so to speak, because again, he was going to be, he was bare knuckle champ at that point, so it made sense for us to, in essence, join forces because of the Great Ones. They were kind of the glue that held it together. And again, Dylan allowed the platform, it gave us the platform initially, and so when I would come in, I think there were certain people who knew who I was because I rarely came into San Antonio, but my name had just kind of traveled. or they'd seen the great ones and kind of, what's this GSL thing? And again, you just want to see, do we get a reaction when we show up? And, when we show up, that was always kind of the thing. So, yeah, once I started getting in there and realizing that people did recognize who I was and were fans of my work or wanted to see me in certain matchups, that was cool. But the truth is, getting the whole group together, it can be kind of hit or miss. I mean, there have been instances where I've said, hey, can we come in as a whole group? And it'd be like, well, I don't know if I've got room for you guys, whether it's from a budgetary standpoint. And there have been points where it's like, hey, man, I live in Austin, so me coming to San Antonio is not that big of a deal. If it's going to further the brand of GSL, I'm all for it. But I realize, hey, Dylan's got his own vision, and Great Scott, while part of us, is also part of the commission, and that's his group. So who am I to say, hey, man, be part of the group in your home? We can still be affiliated with each other, but if you want to be the lead of this commission, we can't come in and we can be in that respect. And I know that there was talk of, hey, we're going to cross promote here and there and potentially, but honestly, I always feel really great when I hear GSL chants, and we're not always there as the whole group. If someone wears one of our shirts, it becomes a GSL thing. So, and that's ultimately what you hope for. You hope for that the brand builds and that people want to see individual talent, but at the same time that they associate some of that talent with a particular brand, because it just helps the brand in the long run. And at the same time, it's kind of the motto of the group is just to get everyone affiliated with the group over, and get everyone that's associated with us over, and at the same time get everyone who does business with us over, and get promotions that work with us over, so that other promotions and eventually, if we ever do our own thing and have other promotions come in, then we've already laid the groundwork ahead of time, so that we're not dealing with a lot of the pitfalls that do fall, promotions when they start out. But yeah, I enjoy my time when I'm there. A lot of times too, it's on me, as a performer. There are times where, honestly, man, I getting out of bed sometimes is a fucking victory for me. So being able to move around is a victory for me, being able to combat some of this stuff that mentally, physically, so on and so forth. So, I'm not always, I can be moody about stuff. I can be like, well, how does it fit? Do you really need me? So on and so forth. So it's not like, hey, I haven't done myself any favors when it comes to certain appearances. But, when 2020 rolled around and at the end of 2019, I started to go, well, okay, so from a group dynamic, I need to try to be available as much as possible. But that's hit or miss, my hope is like, hey, one day there's GSL, all 8 of us, and we're all there, or all 8 of us, and then whoever else, because again, I'd love to blend universes. I'd love, what we could do with the commission, what we could do with whoever that we're interacting with. So yeah.
Now, me and Julio, we were first introduced to GSL through Great Scott with our home promotion here in the Valley of Wrestling Revolution. Now mentioning Rob Love. Have you guys ever spoken about maybe bringing, if not all GSL, obviously with booking, bringing most of the group, maybe the great ones, yourself, Great Scott, down to the Valley or anything like that? Because again, I think Scott's been down here about 3-4 times maybe. I think he was first time it was just himself, and then he had a hardcore show, then a steel cage match with Max Castellanos, and then they were scheduled for another hardcore show last month, I believe. It was supposed to be last month.
Okay.
Right? So again, to ask again, have you guys ever talked about maybe bringing more of GSL down to the Valley? I know Rob is one of the creatives here at Wrestling Revolution.
Right. I mean, here's the insight, right? It's one thing for me to say, because I've said this, and I will go on record to say it here, and I'll go on record to say it anywhere. GSL will go wherever GSL's wanted. If they want to bring us in and they approach us about being brought in, I'm all for it. I'm rarely the one that's going to ixnay something unless it's just not the payoff isn't quite what it needs to be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be financial. But that's always the stopping point for a lot of promotions. The idea of like, well, I can bring in Great Scott because it's one talent, and so I only have to pay for that one talent. But if I want GSL, do I have to pay a group package? And the truth is, we're all coming, if we were all coming from San Antonio and we could all carpool with Scotty, that'd be one thing. Or if we had a tour bus and this was a brand that really paid for itself, then yay, we would do that. But the truth is, let's look at the finances, right? We have taken hits for being a group together because, again, promotions don't a stable one financially. Okay, well, that's 8 people that I have to pay for, and maybe they don't all perform. So how do we do that? Well, I could say, well, if you give us a place to sell merch and our merch game's on point, if it is on point, then phenomenal because it'll pay for itself. But that's not always the case, right? If we're not truly introduced and truly kind of promoted in a way, then how can we build our brand within your promotion? But again, promotions have visions, creative types have visions. I have a vision, everyone has a vision. So what I always run into, at least early on, was how can we destroy the group before we really form it? And so I've been very stubborn in a sense of like, well, take that out of the equation of like, you write our swan song because we're not writing our swan. You're not writing it. We would if we're going to write it. And who says that we're going to write it? We might just want to be Great Sexy Love for the rest of our lives because we love the concept. And even breakups, they are what they are. But if you're a family, you always come together, and a family dynamic's a lot better. To answer that question, yeah, I would love to go to Wrestling Revolution. I'd love to, for GSL to be all over the place. But the truth is that I'm one guy that can say, yeah, we'll come in. So even if you take the financial away, then you've got to look at the vision of the company. Because if you bring on our stable, well, what do we do with that stable? Do we NWO it? Maybe. Do I pay for these guys to just show up in 1 or 2 segments with, being backup for Scotty, or how do we do that? And so it becomes how do I book GSL? Because again, if you want the full experience, you got to have all members, or at least a vast majority of them. And sometimes people will go, well, I could bring in Great Scott and the Great Ones, and maybe Pumpkin will show up with the Great Ones potentially. So okay, and then I don't necessarily need to worry about bringing in Remedy or Adorable or Loverboy or Demarco, because Demarco's very vocal and Demarco's opinionated, and he's put on shows and he's produced places. So what if he doesn't like our vision? What happens then, right? So it becomes all these hoops that they don't want to jump through, when realistically I'm like, just give us a place to perform, tell us what you need from us. We're going to film content for our own thing, and we'll figure out the finances depending. But I'm one that's like, man, I'll take a hit for if it betters the brand. I'll do that, but I can't answer that for my entire crew because we all got to eat. And I love wrestling to the extent of like, man, I'll perform for free. I don't give plenty of heavy metal shows. I've gone in, not asked for a dime. Never gotten paid from heavy metal. It's not that is neither here nor there. I agreed to it. So it's not a financial thing. So a lot of times I think they have a vision, and if they want to put certain members in things, well, we don't want to upset that because they may not want to always bring us in. They may not want to always bring the collective, the collective group. So, it becomes a headache for them, and I don't want to wish a headache upon anyone. I just go, look, if you watch us at places where we're a group together, or you watch our content, that's what you're going to get. And if you need to watch what ACW does, and because they give us that freedom. And again, we're working to build the brand. So again, it doesn't fall on me. I've never said, no, I don't want to come into some place necessarily, at least when it comes to GSL. But I'm always like, do you want the whole group, or do you want just a portion, or do you just want a particular talent? And you're not really concerned about having us all there because, God, if you have us all there, well, what ends up happening? We end up getting over, and then we may throw a wrench in your story, and irregardless, because it happens, because we're not going to stop being entertaining, irregardless of what you give us. If you give us one segment and it's 2 minutes and it's just really, we only have time to do our entrance, we'll get over doing our entrance and then we'll leave and they'll talk about us for the rest of the night, and whatever happens. Well, then use more of us and use us more often and pay us, and realize that we're going to better your show, because everyone within GSL's a top flight performer. I mean, Great Scott's phenomenal, bro. That dude's top notch in any promotion. So again, I've never put the caveat of like, you need to book GSL if you book so-and-so and so-and-so. I've never done that. I could do that. I could literally be like, well, you can't book the great ones unless you book Steve Demarco or you book all of GSL. That doesn't benefit anybody. Doesn't benefit them. Doesn't benefit me. It just creates headaches. So I've been like, well, I'll just be nice about it. And if people want to use us, great. And if they don't want to use us, or they don't want to use all of us, okay. If you use one member of ours, then I'll just tag Great Sexy Love in all of it. And maybe they'll wear a GSL shirt of some kind, or they'll make mention that they're part of the group. And then in some respects, we're already there, even when we're not all there. And so, you have to work with it. But my hope is, hey, man, with a new dawn and a new day, and everybody, hopefully seeing some of our work, and maybe through the content that we put out, we make more fans that just want to come because they want to see GSL perform. And that really drives us getting more opportunity. It'd be one thing, hey, if we went to Wrestling Revolution as a group and we doubled or tripled their gate, that would be one thing. But if the same number of people show up and GSL doesn't really spike that, doesn't really push for more fans, then I can understand that, I can understand the finances, the budgeting, and so on and so forth. I've done that. So I totally get it. And I totally get having a vision and not, having a vision and wanting to be stuck with that vision, because it's your vision. I don't want to step on anyone's toes when it comes to that stuff. That's not, I'm Danny Glover when it comes to that shit. I'm too old for it. So I have no desire to ruffle feathers or create heat outside of the heat that we create within segments that we're doing or content that we're producing. But outside of it, I'm not looking to create heat. And I did that enough when I was younger. So I have no desire to do it now. And so what I want is for GSL as a brand to just bring eyes to whatever product that they're a part of, whether it's one member or all 8 of us, or whatever it becomes. I've always joked with it, because people call me Wrestling Jesus or the Sexy God, to have disciples and have a nice 12 or 13 man person, and the 13th be the person who stabs me in the back, because that's just how it's written. But we're not there yet. So it's like, strategically, who's like officially part of the group. Although we always talk about adding members, but right now it's always like holding pattern how we're doing it. And through the web series, we are adding members. They're just like, may not appear in everything, but if they appear somewhere and they've been on our product, then rest assured that they're probably part of the group in some form or facet.
Yeah. So we really, like you said, we really like it depends on the promotions and stuff, but we really hope at least some of the group members to come down. But like how you said, it depends on the promotion. But let's right. Step out a little bit of GSL, and let's talk a little bit more about your career. What got you into to be a pro wrestler?
Oh man, Kerry Von Erich, Ric Flair, probably is the first match that I saw. I think it was Texas Stadium. It was it was the one where Kerry beat Ric Flair with a backslide. I was a big fan of Ric Flair, but I love the Von Erichs. And then I was just a fan. I was in the service for a couple of years. A lot of my fellow service members that, whether it was the squadron that I served with, a lot of them talked about what would you do after, once your time is out, what would you do? And a lot of us talked about, some of us, it was the joke, like getting into wrestling. It was something I wanted to do. I probably would have gotten into it when I first moved to Austin when I was in college. But at that point, I was thinking, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and maybe that's not for me. Plus, I just got wrapped up and I didn't have time for it. After getting out of the service, I I moved back to Austin. I was roughly 25, and the place that I had seen like on public access, it was CTPW out of Austin, George de la Isla, Ray Campos, or Papa Don. They were the ones who I saw a thing in the Chronicle, Austin Chronicle, and I saw an advertisement for him, and I called them up. And after a little bit of back and forth, finally was able to get in, face to face, have a face to face meeting with them, and kind of the rest was history. I've been doing it and took my first like official wrestling bump February of 2000. So, and I've done a myriad of stuff since, from performing to all kinds of other stuff.
All right. So who trained you? Who started you off?
George de la Isla, Ray Campos were two of the people that really started me out. George done a lot of work in Mexico as well as in California in the 50s and 60s and 70s. He trained me. Chavo Guerrero Sr. also had a hand in it. Also, just everyone that once I started performing, because I'd done roughly like 2 months of training before having a match. And even some of the veterans on that first show, like El Latino and Tito Sanchez and a few others, became mentors of mine. And throughout my travels, every veteran, every young person, everybody that I've worked with, I try to gain knowledge out of it, also working in front of crowds. But yeah, I mean, they were the ones who taught me the nuts and bolts. Also, Psycho Simpson or Russell Simpson, paramount in my early tutelage. And then probably 5 or 6 years in, went in, initially got an invite to be a student with Booker T, and I worked with him when he was with PWA, took some time away, did some promoting and some show running of my own. And then once Reality Wrestling got branded and they started doing that, they needed production people, and I wanted to be a producer. I'd produced before. So I became a talent / coach / producer and worked hand in hand with the production side, and was a mentor and a coach for a number of years. And then now just doing it like everybody else.
All right. So where you were at PWA with Booker T, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Right.
All right. So that's where you met. Last time we had a Remedy here at the show, he told us he pretty much met you there. And
right.
I was gonna ask, how was the experience there training with Booker?
I would tell anyone Booker is a tremendous wealth of knowledge. I mean, the guy's a Hall of Famer, obviously 2-time Hall of Famer, still makes money for that company, still makes money with that company. So he's maintained a job for all his career since starting out. And I was a big fan of Booker from his time at WCW. And when I first started learning under him, he was King Booker. And I will say, like, King Booker to me is one of the most underrated heels in the history of our business, probably one of the most underrated characters in our business. Because man, just hours upon hours of great content. And so I was a big fan of his, and he is like he is on television. There's not really much of a difference. But, it's just a wealth of knowledge. I honestly, went for a WWE tryout, and he was working with our group. And, you get in there with someone, and I had been doing it about 5-6 years at that point, and thought I was fairly competent in what I was doing, and thought I had it somewhat figured out. I had produced and, developed talent, so on and so forth. So I had behind the scenes experience as well as being a guy front and center of a company and being kind of the figurehead of a company, so on and so forth. So, but, within 30-40 minutes of being in this group session with Book, I went from being in black and white to having the color turned on, just from how he approaches it from a storytelling standpoint, from a character standpoint. So it's kind of the ultimate performance character. There's a lot of little things, the nuance of our business, getting the most out of things that you do, when to put things together, realizing that it's not while it's can be a good versus evil type of story, that's not always the case. And what makes a great villain is that they believe they're the hero in the story, so that they're justified in what they do. So all these little nuggets, plenty of great knowledge, getting to work with him, just getting to sit with him as matches are happening and how he kind of picks them apart. And again, how he doesn't let you get away with little stuff, little bad habits, how he tries to break you of those things. And again, trying to think outside of the box and how to work for your opponent while, keeping yourself strong. There's just a wealth of knowledge that I gained just working with him under the learning tree and then ultimately producing for him. So I'll never, it's a reason that I moved to Houston. It's the reason that I left what I had going on and got outside of my comfort zone. I felt like it was definitely worthwhile to work with him, the 2 stints that I got to work with him. And I wish reality wrestling nothing but the utmost success. But yes, I did meet Remedy there, and great dude.
Yeah. So you mentioned us before we started recording for the podcast, and right now you did production. PWA formed to ROW. How was the work there with production? How was everything going there?
Well, the thing was that when they rebranded, I had been doing the show IWE. We had been doing stuff on YouTube and Facebook when it was a thing, and Facebook before it was really popular, and then MySpace when it was a thing, and we were really utilizing social media. And a lot of the talent that worked there I had met at PWA, and I wanted to run a show. I was approached about being a champion at a show, and I asked the promoter who was running it. It was a new company, so who was booking it. He didn't have a name, so I asked if I could do it because I had some experience in that. So when we ran somewhat like a 4-camera shoot. I had a video production company that would come in. This guy Justin Smith of Dojo Productions, who have gone on to do other things since. But at the time, we created kind of, okay, how can we televise, stream, so on and so forth, and kind of tell this, tell a story based on what we've learned. So when Booker was forming Reality Wrestling, he needed to film and produce that content. So I got brought in to be talent, but also to be a liaison with Justin and his video production crew, and also Kevin Bernhardt, who would, go on to be the director of it. I kind of was at the end, kind of the infancy stages of that. Kevin had kind of worked with me hand in hand at IWE, so he picked up a lot of the tricks of the trade there. So we had some kind of foundation that I kind of worked with production, and then also really worked with talent as far as being a match agent as well as just an agent in general, and producing promos and so on and so forth. So I got to work with a lot of talent from, them getting their starts to, getting on the show and so forth. So I really enjoyed my time there because it gave me the opportunity to work with talent and help them develop a voice. And it was something that I really wanted to transition to, from being a performer to being behind the scenes. And that was until, 2018, I want to say. And then we parted ways, and, now I'm back to performing and, in essence, being a producer and content creator with GSL.
Nice. So let's talk about your first match. How did it go down? All that good stuff. Little background story about it.
First match was, it was named after President Nixon, Texas, or Kennedy, Texas. I think it was Nixon, Texas. And it was one of those tried and true. I wasn't set to debut because it was a separate company. I was training with CTPW in Austin. I was going to have my debut maybe a month later at one of their shows, but I happened to carpool with some guys and bring my gear, because that's always the golden rule. Bring your gear if you're talent. You never know. And some guy failed to show up, so they needed someone to be part of it. They needed someone for a match against Flaming Rose, who had been a veteran at that point. I think he'd been at 4 or 5 years at that point. But he's more veteran than me. And I proceeded to kind of remember that there was a crowd. There weren't that many people there. I think there was like 12 or 15 people in the audience. It was an outdoor show. And I think I proceeded to get stiffed slap-wise from my opponent, which I returned it in kind, which I found out later was a test to see what would happen. Would I be more forceful or less forceful? I apparently knocked him loopy with a super kick. I think it was more how he took the super kick. And then I proceeded to hit a couple of other finishers because I didn't really, I was in it for myself as opposed to really the audience, and got a wide variety of good feedback from some of the veterans there. Match didn't go long, maybe 5-10 minutes, if that. But, got my feet wet and let me kind of understand that and again, I was only maybe 6 weeks into it at that point. And had only had a handful of practice matches. So it wasn't really like I had kind of a sense who Steve Demarco was, but it was still, it's always kind of a work in progress, but it was one of those things. I mean, again, getting stiff, getting the respect of the veterans, getting told by El Latino that within 2 years, the psychology would kind of like a light bulb switch. And that's more or less true. I mean, it's about reps, but it's also about paying attention to paying attention to the audience and kind of hearing where they're at and not getting so trapped in being too spotty or, just having these long complicated segments of a match and losing sight of performing for an audience, so to speak. So, but, it was April 2000 was when I first started performing. So, and yeah, I've had fun ever since.
So, you work with quite a few promotions around Texas. I just wanted to ask, what promotions would you like to work for?
Oh, well, I would like for any promotion that wants to book GSL to book GSL. Specific promotions, I mean, Inspire's kind of on my radar. It's been on my radar. I've loved their stuff for a number of years. It'd be great for GSL to get on the East Coast or up in Canada, or to go up to Colorado and work with Rocky Mountain Pro again, because I like what they're doing. I like people that are putting out content and putting out content religiously, and also putting out quality content, and thinking outside the box and focusing on characters and such. And again, we've got all this time in the world now at this point, sitting in front of our devices, but I don't think it's any different once the pandemic ends. I think we're still going to be kind of glued to what's in front of us, as far as like what device we're holding. So there are plenty of promotions out there. I'd hate to limit it, because honestly, there might be a promotion that hears this and is like, oh, well, you didn't mention me, and it's like, well, I probably wasn't either aware or, but yeah, I mean, the big thing is that the promotions that have been reluctant, maybe for whatever reason, it'd be great to build some kind of working relationship with them. Or again, once heavy metal's going, or work with these collective shows. I did mention Inspire Rocky Mountain. I mean, there are a few others, whether it be freelance or, again, even the promotions that we currently work for, building those brands and being a valued member of their team, so that we're seen in the light of promotion builders as opposed to like a promotion destroyer or something like that. I think we want to bring something to the table. Ultimately, I want GSL to become a household name so that everyone's a fan of ours, or everyone likes our stuff or buys our merch or this, that, the other. I want to build that brand. That's the focus, more than like individual promotions. I mean, because it's a group thing at this point. So it's like if Scott works for New Texas, awesome. Then that means that we've got a foothold over there, or he works for Wrestling Revolution. Hey, that's another place. Or if the great ones get booked to somewhere like New Texas or wherever have you. That we're having these in, so Lucha Brutal or Sabotage. I mean, Sabotage would be great. Mission Pro Wrestling. There are plenty of ones that are like local, I guess, that local to me, that would be great. Because I mean, traveling's fun, but at the same time, I mean, it is. I'm a family man, so my priorities have changed to an extent, and I've got to make sure I get the most out of it. That there's something worthwhile for me, and that again, we're trying to build this brand. That's probably at the forefront for me.
Yeah, always. It's sometimes always better to bring in the group. And also, I mentioned you were a producer and you have your own podcast, correct? The Lucha Lounge.
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast, what goes on, and
Yeah. I mean, I had been doing. I mean, the Lucha Lounge was kind of a social media hub, so to speak. Started on YouTube. I had been on YouTube fairly early, like March of 2007. Shortly after a tragedy came into my life, but prior to that, I had some discussions with a friend of mine about building an audience outside of the local audiences that I was a part of. I was with Booker at the time, and only with Booker. But after a few months, I was like, man, I've been performing on my own and traveling. I wanted to start traveling again and gotten the go ahead and do that. So I wanted to build an audience so that, hey, that's the way of the world now. YouTube's going to be a thing, and it's an easy way to put out content. It's free, so on and so forth. So the Lucha Lounge actually was Paul London, who I broke in with pretty much. We tagged for a while. We were traveling buddies for a bit. That was kind of his man cave. So I always liked the Lucha Lounge, and I thought, man, it'd be cool, to have something. And so originally my vlogs on YouTube were going to be that. It would become that. Originally it was going to be me and this particular friend filming our adventures. We were an act at that point. She passed away shortly after that conversation, unfortunately, tragically. But I had already gotten the tools in place, and I thought, man, if I'm not going to do it now, I'm never going to do it. So started the YouTube stuff and built somewhat of a following, but wrestling's wrestling, and trying to find ways of thinking outside the box, turn into a vlog. And then podcasting had always been something I'd wanted to do. I started doing these conversation pieces with people, but mainly on YouTube. But I would, some of my fans would be like, if only there was a way to download it and be able to have it whenever and not necessarily have to watch a screen, just have it while I'm working out. And I was like, oh man, podcasting. Happened to be a guest on the Offshoots. It was a one singular guy running it at the time. And I was kind of curious because, again, I was doing these conversation pieces on my own, like, oh, maybe I should do a podcast. He wanted to produce and create a network. And I was like, well, if I could figure a way to get it to you. And he's like, yeah, man, and we'll work it out. So the podcast is, ideally it would be great to have guests and just kind of learn their story as the fans learn their story. And whether it be friends of mine, because obviously that's easier. If it's people that I have an association with or have had association with, I can bring them on because we know each other. I prefer like face-to-face conversations as opposed to over the phone, even though at this point video and stuff is going to be the norm. But that was the preference. So, and again, doing these longer form kind of take as much time as you want. You're not limited except based on your schedule, so to speak. But part of me is like, man, trying to release it consistently for about a year and a half, I was releasing stuff fairly consistent. And then maybe around episode 90 or so, I felt like I didn't have much to say. I think we all go through that, and so for me, it was one of those things, dealing with my own kind of mental state. I stopped probably last year, like 2 years ago, just stopped wanting to put out content. Just got tired of looking at myself. It's hard to produce myself. I can produce anyone else, but producing myself, very tough. Same thing with just putting out content. I didn't want to see my face when I was recording, but again, trying to figure out how to use one device, like that would be my big thing. Hey, can I do everything on my phone? Which I figure I can, I've been able to. I'd like to have more guests, and now that I'm able to understand how to record off Skype, that might become a thing. So I'm looking to bring out, like get members of GSL and just people that I travel with. But a lot of times it's tough, especially with shows, because that would be where I mainly would talk to people, because you're preparing for the event and you're preparing for the multiple segments and whatnot. But that for me is also an excuse of like trying to get it, wanting to put out content enough. Again, I've been on YouTube for years, and then I just stopped putting out content. I was doing like daily Demarco out, like inspirational posts, trying to work with Instagram, and they're like 1 minute or 45 second if it's Twitter, just trying to figure out the different platforms and how to like get content out specific to those platforms. But I find myself like, what do I have to say? And do I want to be stuck, be part of the noise? Because eventually it all becomes noise. Not saying everyone's noise, but again, there's so many options. What do I have to say? Because of what I've done, it's not like it's public knowledge or that I put it out there. I mean, outside of maybe my own stuff here and there, because people have asked me to mention it, even working for Book, never really wanted to like mention it because I didn't really care about the credit. I just wanted to be part of a product that was a positive force within our industry. Same thing with GSL. So yeah, I mean, I go through the Offshoots Radio Network. They're on Podbean, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, Google Play, a few others. But I'm one show within a plethora, within a network. So I don't, part of me is like, well, will I continue to do the Lucha Lounge? I don't know. I thought about doing one like, hey, let's talk about the effects of the coronavirus on us the weekend that the first set of shows were being canceled. And even though, I have all this time on my hands, I'm just like, I'll get to it when I get to it. I hate to say it, I can be fairly lazy when it comes to this stuff as far as producing content. And that's on me more than anybody. So I would say, hey, man, the Lucha Lounge will come back at some point. The producer's always asking me, or basically it's like, whenever you want to put out content, it's just a matter of like, do I want to put out content? Same thing with GSL. I know we can be putting out content, but it's like, well, there's no end really in sight. They say dates, but those dates could get extended. So it's like, well, when? And again, you're seeing a lot of content being put out there, a lot of push-up challenges, this challenge, that challenge. And so part of me is like, well, do I go in that group that wants to continue to get that attention if I'm not really wanting the attention at the moment? When I perform, that's one thing. And if I'm in the group scenario or the group wants to do stuff, that's one thing. But, I'm like, well, hey man, I'm here at this point. So we'll just kind of see how it goes.
So I guess we'll move into like more current wrestling. Well, I was actually watching some of your matches while at work today. With PCW, like Sabu, and I know you had some matches with Lance Hoyt, and we've seen what he's been able to do in the last year with New Japan and the G1, and now debuting in AEW. So what's your current take on Lance Hoyt and or Lance Archer? I think he's going by Lance Hoyt now. What's your kind of take on him being able to like reinvent himself, and companies like AEW now that are giving people that opportunity to kind of give them a new platform and a new option, giving fans and wrestlers a new option?
Well, I've known Lance since I broke in. I think he came in for a couple of training sessions. Like there'd be weekends where like me, London, Darren Childs, a few others, Russell Simpson, a few others, we'd kind of have this like small group of guys that were really hungry, wanted, not more hungry than other people. We just made time, and we were able to have time for it. And I had met Lance here and there, and, he's gone by a lot of different monikers. I'm just extremely proud of that guy, to see what he's been able to do. He's been in it 20 years, and it's just, it's seemingly like now people are starting to take notice, and he's got a variety of characters throughout his entire career, whether it would be Impact, which I really loved when he'd wear the Slash hat, was making out with Christy Hemme, and working with Jimmy Rave, the Rock and Rave connection. And, I loved his stuff. I don't know if anyone who was prouder than when he got signed by WWE, and he was Vance Archer for like a cup of coffee. But I mean, yeah, man, he was there. He was part of ECW for a bit. Even when he was signed with Impact and at PCW, where we had one of my better feuds as far as within that company. And he had kind of a protected status within the company. It was still, I was one of the guys that really was, the thorn in his side, and to create magic with him was just that. It was magical, whether it was with him or Tim Storm or anybody that I got to work with at PCW or anywhere really for that matter. Get to see him, I tuned into AEW like a lot of people, and specifically I tuned in because I knew he was getting the opportunity to debut there. Saw his stuff with NJPW. His look has changed over the years, tattoo wise, all that. He's evolved. And I think he's hitting his stride. I think he's found his stride. And to get paired up with Jake the Snake, I mean, could you ask for anything better? And to be put in the position that he's put in, I think the intro video for him where everybody dies and he's just throwing these guys, kind of in like this little, throwing all these like rednecks, for lack of a better term. That everyone dies stuff. And I've always been a big supporter of his. And I'm just proud to watch him get to do his thing. I was proud of Tim Storm when he became NWA world champion, and what he's been able to do with NWA since then. I think the fact that there are so many platforms, and more specifically, I mean, you think of like AEW started with, in essence, a web series, guys wanting to tell their own story and not wanting to be stuck with what a promotion was giving them. I think that's what we're all going for, is the ability to tell our own story within the lexicon of what we're given, sometimes, because a lot of times you work for a promotion, it's not your vision, it's their vision. You can only really control the content that you put out yourself, because there's always going to be some skew if you work for some company, irregardless, because they have their own vision. But with that said, the fact that we live in an age where literally anyone can utilize their phone and put out content literally at their fingertips. The fact that we're able to record this call on Skype, and then you guys are going to do your magic, and it's going to be put out there in the universe for everyone to hear it. And that you have that opportunity, that we all have that opportunity, that everyone has a voice. If anything, this pandemic has showed us that everyone has a voice, that, literally anyone can put content out there. It's great that there are more options, and it's great that people can make a real significant living doing this without having to work for a major company, and some of it you can do it without even performing, just through merch sales. We live in that age, and I mean, that's phenomenal. I think, when I broke in, it wasn't quite like that. It was like tape trading and getting 2 VCRs, or getting someone who could splice stuff together, and having to learn that technical stuff. And now it's a simple matter of, at times you can record a 45-second video, put on some filters through the app and save that, and then find a third party, or, if you have iPhone, then you've got like iMovie and a few other things. You could put all that stuff together through your phone. Man, I mean, it's quite the time, regardless of what we're living through currently. The fact that we're able to stay connected with each other, even if we're, I'm in a room at this point, by myself, but I'm able to talk to you guys, and then we're able to put this conversation forward. And who knows, people could listen to this and like what they hear, not like what they hear. You never know, I think it's just a phenomenal time to be in our industry. I think it's a phenomenal time to be in our world, again, regardless of this pandemic, because if anything, the pandemic has taught us all to slow the fuck down and to be appreciative of what you fucking have, and wash your fucking hands, and hang out with your family here and there, and as opposed to rushing out the door. And again, being appreciative of those opportunities. The fact that WWE is putting out Mania, and while it might not be a 70, 80,000 person venue that they're putting out in front of everyone, they have a network that they can just stream it to, and they can stream it for 2 nights. And they were going to probably go that route anyway at some point, if not this year, probably next year. So they went a little early, and I'm curious what they're going to put forth. I'm really curious about how they're going to produce content, and rather than condemn them, or make light of it, it's like, man, some promotions are never going to run again. That's the truth. Some promotions will never run again. some that were probably going to perform that weekend are never going to run again. We don't know what the world's going to be like once we get the go ahead to leave our houses, where social distancing may be the thing. Handshakes may go by the wayside. Temperature checks may become a thing, become the norm. Again, no one's even talked about like that idea. Like what happens when we get the go ahead? Do we go back to the way things were and potentially risk further infection or contamination, or do we get smarter about it? Are we more wise with stuff? And again, are we gonna get into this thing where we just lose sight and rush through everything, or are we gonna be appreciative of every moment that we have, because it could be gone in an instant?
Definitely. We have a couple segments that we like to do here. The first one of them is it's called Roast This Pig, which is really just.
You want me to introduce?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So this is my personal favorite segment of the show.
Okay.
As Andrew mentioned, it's called Roast This Pig. Well, so the whole goal, there's two parts. The first part is we're gonna have you cut a 60-second promo on a topic of our choosing.
Okay.
So we'll start with that. Adrian, take it away with the topic.
Yes. So I guess the 60-minute promo, which you kind of sort of already did, but I'd like to just have you, on a bit on the fly, is looking at the brighter side of this pandemic.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So as I mentioned before, if anything, this pandemic has taught us that we all need to be aware of our hygiene, folks. Yes, taking a daily shower, not just washing your hands, but like cleansing yourself, maybe on the daily. Being appreciative of those family members that you seem to want to leave on a regular. Not getting wrapped up in what you've lost, but being appreciative of what the fuck you have. And realizing that life will go on in some form or facet. And as long as you're one of the ones living, you're ahead of the ones who are dying. Yeah, man, we don't all get out of this alive. So none of us will get out of this alive as of yet, unless we can downstream our consciousness into some machine. And so until that day, I'm appreciative of every moment that I have, especially the healthy ones.
All right. Adrian, how long was that?
He went on for 43 seconds, so we'll leave that.
Okay.
We'll add that to the next segment. The remainder of that.
So the next segment is my personal favorite part of the segment. So part 2, you're going to have to cut a 60-second promo now. What is that? 77 seconds now? Okay, cool. So now it's going to be 77 seconds of you cutting a promo roasting one of us or all of us. It's your choice. Don't tell us who. Just go for it. So 77 seconds roasting one of us or all three of us as a collective. Don't tell us. Just whenever you're ready.
Oh, Wrestlevlogs. I guess I will cover all of you as a group, because I am one of the founding members, the founder, maybe, if you will, of GSL, the greatest, sexiest, loveliest stable that there's ever been. I know it's something you three aspire to live up to, whether it be the mark that gets marked or the other two, whatever have you. One of you is important because you had gold for a time. You were the first ever. And then I know our buddy Punkin, our little resident Miss Go-Go, took it from you. And then wherever it went, who cares? I think it was destroyed, which I'm a little ticked off about. But with that said, I think it has been your pleasure and your honor to have me, the founder of Great Sexy Love, the greatest, sexiest, loveliest stable that there's ever been. I appreciate your support, and I know that secretly, no, not secretly, publicly, you want to be members, and who knows, if you buy a shirt, maybe, just maybe, after this pandemic, I will give you a patented sexy God hug for your support. But aside from that, thank you for the platform, because that's really all you guys are good for.
Wow.
That's what we call in the business, a promo that lifts you up and tears you down all the while. So there you go.
Oh man.
Which was great that you mentioned Pumpkin, and yes, the first title was destroyed, but we actually it multiplied. You can't. You cut one head off and you get two more. We have
nice.
We have two more titles actually that we're gonna be working on. We were supposed to be working on before all of this happened, and I know we were supposed to go to like a few shows. But yeah, Pumpkin Morgan, one of the first actual wrestlers that became a champion for Wrestlevlogs, and first female wrestler, female champion of Wrestlevlogs. Now that there's two,
I was gonna say, and alongside the alumni of some of the greatest Wrestlevlogs champions, including yours truly, El Chazo.
And my Volkswagen Jetta.
Yeah, and a Volkswagen.
Yeah, that's the greatest champion of all time.
longest
besides
reigning.
me, of course. Besides me.
Longest reigning. Now, would you ever want to take on a Volkswagen Jetta and try to become a Wrestlevlogs champion?
I mean, anyone who knows GSL knows that I wouldn't come alone. And so, yeah, man, I mean, I'd take on a car, an animal, this virus. I don't know about this virus. It's pretty deadly. I would do it with a hazmat suit. Yeah. I've got hand sanitizer. I got plenty of toilet paper. So, I think I'm good, man. I think I'm good. I could battle a virus. I'd battle you three. I don't care. I mean, I don't think you'd want to battle the 8 of us. And who knows, if all goes well, we might just absorb Wrestlevlogs, and then we would become champions because we'd absorb all of your stuff, including your platform. Because that's kind of how we are. We're just the ultimate viral group. I mean, we join. You want to join. It's like the sexually transmitted disease you just want to catch, even though you know and stuff you have to deal with, and there's no cure for it, because once you join the party, you're just a part of the party. It's just a party. So yeah.
Damn, I'm just thinking about it right now. I actually own a kimono, so I might need to bust that out now that GSL is officially acquired. I'm looking for gonna sexually transmit their love onto us greatly.
I mean, that is one way we transmit it. Yep, there's a lot of love, and it's great and sexy time. So you never know.
All right, Steve. Next show, I gotta bust up my kimono and get the shirt.
Don't worry. I'm sure, like all of us, will be doing like a mass, huge hyping up of whatever the next appearance is, whenever that is.
Right on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we're gonna start wrapping this up. I'll go first, and Zilla's gonna go. So,
Okay.
What's the message you want to give out to the people during these times that we're going through, whether it be wrestling, non-wrestling, everything in general?
Man, I would say, like, don't lose hope of what's going on. It seems like the end of the world, and there are plenty of people that are going through some tremendous hard times that will never be impacted by the virus from an infection standpoint. People are losing jobs. Again, what's going to be the new norm coming out of this? I would think, hopefully, we all kind of take this time, as everyone said, man, time to reset, time to figure out what you really want to do. If, in fact, you're one of those that's impacted by the job, or again, being grateful for the job that you have during this pandemic, right? Being one of those that can collect a check while some aren't able to. For my fellow wrestlers, man, yeah, some opportunities are missed. Some shows were canceled, but it's not the end of our industry. I don't think anything's going to quite kill our industry, because I think there's plenty of good out there. Let's focus on that good. Let's be appreciative of the fans that show up. Let's be appreciative of the fans that are watching at home. Let's be appreciative of the content that we put out. Be appreciative of the opportunities that we're given. For GSL, man, the party's going to continue. And once we're all able to be around each other, social distance or not, it'd be real funny to have a social distance party, especially in a closed space where everyone's probably at a corner of a wall at that point. But I think, let's everyone just be mindful and carry those habits that we're being forced. Some of us are being forced to learn for the first time, although I find that really odd because I always wash my hands and, cover my mouth and all that and try to wipe down what I can. But again, it's even taught me to be more mindful of stuff. Just enjoy the time that we're on this earth while we're on this earth. And, yeah, man, I just want to have the best time of my life while I'm here. So just trying to enjoy it.
Now, to anyone that's trying to get into the business, I guess after all of this, we'll see how it goes. But any advice to anyone who is thinking about getting into the business, or whether it be in wrestling, a manager, referee, just anything, what advice would you give these people trying to get in?
Well, I would say, from a producer or from a coach standpoint, I think one of the biggest things for me, especially if you're a performer, whether it be managerial or talent, actually performing in the ring, is to truly figure out what your character is, what the character is that you want to portray, how you want to present it, and realize that that shouldn't be the last thing you try to learn. The psychology of such, the storytelling aspect, I think, aside from just learning the bumps and the mechanics of it, it's to figure out what kind of character you want to portray, and also understand you can't be married to that because you walk into a promotion, it's potentially going to be whatever they want to envision for you. If you're one of those that wants to perform and you've never done this, get in shape. Probably your best friend will be burpees, just to build your cardio up. But again, keep have your eyes open, your ears open, your mouth shut, but your mind open to what you're taught. Go to a quality school, do your research. At this point, it's a beautiful thing. You can go to the internet and find stuff and more or less find who they're putting out and what content they're putting out. At this point, we live in a world where you can build a brand and not have to take a bump and build a following before you even debut. Social media is a powerful tool. It's a powerful thing, and it's something that we should all embrace. And I would think, first and foremost, create a brand that people want to pay to see, or people want to see, whether you're a manager or ref or, talent. It's not an easy business, that bumps and such. It does take an amount of dedication and a mindset. But, we live in an open world now, an open door policy kind of deal. So, there are plenty of opportunities out there. And if we're ever in a locker room or I'm a coach for you, don't hesitate to ask questions. No questions dumb, except for the one you don't ask. And, it's a pleasure to be able to continue to be in this industry. So if I can help anyone get a leg up, or, anyone get further along, that's my goal, because there were plenty of vets that did that for me. I want to make the business, I want to leave it better than when I got here. And I think, we're definitely in a renaissance period for our industry. So I think, just like any entertainment platform, I think it's now's the time to get into it, even in these uncertain times, because at some point, the doors are going to be open. At some point, we're going to be able to gather. And if it's something you want to pursue, it might be a different take on how we do things. But again, you can look no further than the major companies that are continuing to put out content now, and those that are putting out content despite being in even a quarantine situation. Where there's a will, there's a way. So, yeah.
Right on.
And where can the fans follow you? Great Sexy Love.
Well, Great Sexy Love, I mean, or GSL. I think if you look up Great Sexy Love on any social media platform outside of Twitter, I don't know if we have a Tinder or Grindr or any of that. You probably have to ask the great ones. For Steve Demarco, you can Google me and you can find me, because unlike so many youngsters in this business, I kind of have piecemealed all my stuff. So everything's different. My Twitter's different than my Instagram. But if you look up Steve Demarco, you can tend to find me. I'm the one who either looks like Charles Manson or Buddy Christ, or, one variation Rasputin. I've been called that. I've been called John Wick. I've been called Aquaman. So, you can find me. I'm very easy to find. Same thing with GSL. I think we do a pretty fairly good job. Follow all of the Great Sexy Love stuff, or Goddess of Propaganda on YouTube when we put out some of our GSL 2020 content. Although we're on hiatus until either we get together or we devise the plan on how to move forward. I know we are probably Saturday before Mania. We're going to film potentially do one of our video conference calls, quarantine conference calls, and we're going to catch up and probably film some of that, because usually hilarity ensues when we're all together, whether it's over the phone, video conference, or all together. And just be on the lookout for us moving forward, as whether it's the content that we put out, or once we're able to do shows and go live in a venue. I'm for one can't wait for that. So yeah, man, been a real pleasure, guys. I mean, honestly, I think I mentioned it to you guys on y'all's group page, that I've been looking forward to being on y'all's show. I like what you guys have put out, the fact that you support everybody. Really sad that I couldn't, and I honestly want to apologize for not being able to be there face to face when you guys were at Heavy Metal. It was a last minute decision why I didn't end up showing up. Honestly, I was dealing with some stuff on my end, and so unfortunately I was unable to make it. But let me know when y'all will be at a show, especially if it's members, if it's within San Antonio, Austin. I would definitely advise you guys to come to an ACW show whenever those happen. I know they're in Austin, although there might be one in San Antonio. At least that was one in the works. Because the group as a whole, if you see any of our ACW stuff, you kind of see the group with all 8 members, and that's a rarity. But yeah, man, I mean, again, even in this time, you guys found a way to put out product and put out content. And I mean, hands off to you guys. And if I can ever be a guest on your show again, or if we reverse the roles, I could probably get you on my Lucha Lounge once I start doing those again. And who knows, April 20th through the 22nd is usually when I start to think of my Wrestleversary. So I might be kicking off the Lucha Lounge moving forward, irregardless of where we are in the pandemic, because whether it's me or, again, thanks to you guys, I figured out how to record a Skype call and actually use Skype. So thank you guys. I'm eternally grateful. And and for me, like, if anyone wants to be on the Lucha Lounge, it's real simple. Message me and we can figure something out. Especially now, again, able to do recording Skype calls. You'll have to tell me how it goes. So let me know any of the pitfalls you run into. But again, if you ever want me back on the show, or if you want the whole group, or if we can figure out something, whether it's before we're able to do a face-to-face or after, and I definitely want to be on the show live. And who knows, maybe there'll be some title switching or shenanigans. One thing we do know for sure, it will be the greatest, sexiest, loveliest party, whatever time of year it is.
Right on. I'll be sure to bust out the kimono at that point.
Yes, you will definitely have to bust out the kimono, or just a GSL piece of merch that includes baby onesies at whatamaneuver.net. Look up Steve Demarco, because we don't have a GSL store yet, although we will probably be going to Pro Wrestling Tees at some point. But usually if you find us, especially the great ones, there's always merch. I know we've got some party sacks up in the because everyone says GSL sacks. I think they're calling for GSL sacks, so we're going to try to provide those. Or we are actually talking about, in lieu of the virus and the pandemic, doing a GSL COVID protection pack. We are looking into making those. Yeah, complete with GSL face masks. Hand sanitizer. We're in the talks of that, which is part of our video conference call this Saturday. So
Damn, I was thinking of a different protection pack with Great Sexy Love, but
My
okay, that
man,
works
we
too.
don't worry, we've got you guys covered. We got the ladies covered. Probably there'll be different sacks.
I believe the great one said that GSL provides full service.
Full service, including GSL socks, because people have asked for socks too. I don't know. Those chants are very creative. It's GSL socks and GSL sacks. We might even get saxophones. I don't know yet, guys. It's all in the planning phases. So,
is it boo or boo earns?
I don't know. I think when they're saying boo, they're booing our opponents. I, for one, think it's bad of them. I don't want anyone to be booed, and I think that if they are booing us, they must have lost their invite. So I want to, as a parting gift, want to invite everyone to join the party. It's more than a hashtag. I want everyone. We don't care if you have battled us in the past. We don't care if you feel like you're an enemy. I love everyone. That's why love is in the group. I think everyone's sexy, and I think you're all great. You can be part of GSL. You just have to join the party. Now, after this invite, if you choose not to, well, ask any party pooper what happens to them. They lose their hair. They get the virus. It's a whole thing.
On their face.
And, then I won't cover my mouth when I'm coughing. And who knows? Maybe I'm a carrier that doesn't have symptoms. But who knows? Honestly, man, I hope everyone gets out of this in one piece. And whether it's in a month or 2 months or 6 months, we're all able to go to some sense of normalcy and be able to perform in front of audiences. Because I think for a lot of us, we're seeing, how paramount the audience is. But I think at the same time, there is an audience. They're usually on their phones, and we just have to placate to them as well.
Now, we definitely want to have you on again. We may, if it happens, we would love to be on the Lucha Lounge, and I know we're getting more members of GSL, and hopefully collectively on the podcast, and like you said, in person would be great. We would love to put out some content together, and hopefully that Heavy Metal and ACW show happens, because me and Julio were actually planning to travel up there and go to that show. So hopefully we're able to see you face to face and be with the party and be with the Great Eight. So
we'll do either we'll do a fist bump or a hand sanitized high five, or maybe we'll do depends on where we're at with this pandemic. But I'm sure either way we will have just a grand old party, guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for coming on the show.
Not a problem, guys. Thanks again, and you guys stay safe. And like everyone's been saying, wash your fucking hands. All right? And stay home. Stay the fuck home. Just stay the fuck home. Stay the fuck home. I'm not Samuel Jackson, but I'm just telling you. Stay the fuck home.
That's been our message as well.
That's been her fucking message.
If you don't wash your hands, we're going to send Steve Demarco to fuck you up. And also, we're going to send the Remedy. Who else are we going to send?
We're going to send Richie Garcia, Rodney Mack, the Remedy,
and now
Joe Exotic, Nastico, and now Steve Demarco.
And the entire GSL.
Y'all can make a PSA of just all of us saying, wash your fucking hands. But again, man, truly a pleasure, guys. Thanks for the time. And really looking forward to us getting to do it again at some point.
Oh, for sure.
Thank you. And I definitely will. I will let you know. I will be in contact with you guys. Be on the lookout. Once I start putting out an announcement, I'm going to be doing more Lucha Lounge episodes. I will definitely return the favor, because it's been a fun conversation. And I'm sure by then we'll be on to whatever, and we can probably even talk about Mania and all the fun that they're probably going to have.
All right. So that has been the show, guys, with the, as always, great, sexy, and loveliest Steve Demarco. Be sure to follow us on all social media. You can find me on Instagram at El Chazo with 3 Z's. That is ELCHAZZZO. At Twitter at El Chazo with 2 Z's, ELCHAZZO.
You can find me on On Instagram, that's at Moichzilla, Moichzilla. And on Twitter, Merchzilla, Merchzilla.
And you can find me on Instagram, Julio_VASKES2. And also on Twitter, Julio_VASKES. And just follow us on all the updates on what we got on Wrestlevlogs. Also, most importantly, follow the page Wrestlevlogs, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of them are the same, at Wrestlevlogs. And just subscribe to the channel, of course. And just ask for your favorite wrestlers to be on the show. Also, anyone in the business wants to be in the show, contact us through the page or through our social media platforms. And that's pretty much it. Thank you to Steve Demarco to be in the show.
And as our closing message, as always, be nice to people and wash your fucking hands.
Wash your fucking hands, people.